Today we had a statement coming from Sheikh Naim Qasim, the Deputy Secretary General of Hizbullah, and he made some interesting statements in his speech. One of them was the fact that we are entering a new phase. This new phase, according to him, is about hurting Israel. Sheikh Naim Qasim, Hezbollah has regained its field health, and we will return the raging beast to the fold, or the raging animal, or whatever it is, grab it by the rope and take it back to the barn or fold or whatever it is they called it. So they are threatening Israel. And what is the new phase called? The phase of inflicting pain on Israel. So he said we ended the era of the supporting front, and now we are at a phase of inflicting pain on this enemy. Hezbollah Deputy Secretary General Sheikh Naim Qasim confirmed today on Tuesday that Hezbollah is strong and has regained its field health, announcing that there are no vacant leadership positions. In a televised speech, Sheikh Naim Qasim said in this context, if you want to be reassured about Hezbollah, I will tell you that the party is strong, despite the harsh blows after the pager and what happened. We have regained our health, restored our organizational capabilities, and put in place alternatives, noting that the field confirms this development has occurred. As a matter of fact, to elaborate on that, we haven't seen a decrease at any point, even at the height of the Israeli attacks. So even when they were carrying out the pager attacks or the target assassinations, Hezbollah was still targeting them and increasing its capacity. And now again, we're talking about the new phase of inflicting pain on the enemy. The party is strong with its fighters and capabilities, strong with the cohesion of the party and the Amal movement and this public that works together in solidarity with each other, with all strength and determination, strong with the allies, the noble media, the supporting associations and cooperative government, strong with the national unity that has been revealed, and silence the discordant voices until they are no longer able to speak, strong with the popular embrace, strong because it was founded on piety and at the hands of the great leader, Sayyid Hassan Nasrullah, may God Almighty be pleased with him. He continued, Hezbollah has the right to target any place inside occupied Palestine in order to blame the occupation because the latter is targeting all of Lebanon, noting that we will choose the point that we see appropriate. There are no longer points within the equation because the Israelis opened this equation. The enemy itself helps us strike it. How? We send a missile and the anti-aircraft missiles move. The remnants of the anti-aircraft missiles land on settlements and cities. This is a blessing because there are now repercussions on the enemy because of the anti-aircraft missiles. He added, our planes go and our missiles go, and the sirens sound everywhere. This is an expression of the impact on Israeli society. We will focus on targeting the enemy, the army, its centers, and its barracks. Referencing to Israel's boasting about entering hundreds of meters into Lebanon, he said it was delayed for 2 weeks and could not advance forward. The youth are waiting to join more and more, knowing that in the first week on the front edge, 25 people were killed and 150 were wounded. But of course, the Israelis acknowledged some of the dead and wounded. Of course, not all of them. Israel will try and hide as much as possible. A week ago, we decided on a new equation, called it the equation of hurting the enemy or inflicting pain on the enemy. Rockets are now reaching Haifa and beyond Haifa as our master wanted, in reference to Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah. You saw these strikes reaching Tel Aviv, And also last Sunday alone, the Israelis admitted 100 dead and wounded. And of course, when they say 100 dead and wounded, this definitely means more. And that's very accurate because Israel usually, sometimes you can tenfold the numbers. The qualitative strike in Binyamina alone resulted in more than 70 dead and wounded. And this shows the resistance, decision, and ability. On Monday, we were also able to deliver our missiles to Tel Aviv. 2 million settlers went into shelters in Greater Tel Aviv, and 194 towns and settlements went to shelters. Ben Gurion Airport stopped working. This is all part of the equation of hurting the enemy, and this will continue. What the Mujahideen have accomplished in the field during the last 2 weeks was greater and better than they expected, because the mission of the resistance is not to stand as a regular army preventing an army from advancing, but rather the mission of the resistance is to pursue the enemy, the army, and carry out operations against it wherever it enters. We started 2 weeks ago to equalize the field on the front edge, and the Mujahideen confronted the Israeli enemy from multiple places in Kfar Kila, Adaisi, Yarun, and Mais al-Jabal. We are facing a raging monster that cannot tolerate the resistance, preventing it from achieving its goals, but we are the ones who will hold its reins and bring it back to the fold. Noting that the Secretary General, His Eminence Said, may God Almighty be pleased with him, built a solid resistance with faith and trust in its Lord, and it has prepared its equipment. Its fighters have hearts that are ready for a precious life, and they do not fear death. As for the enemy, because it is bankrupt and because all capabilities it has are of no use to it, it went on killing members of the Lebanese army, killing the UNIFIL, went on blowing up churches, places of worship, and mosques. It attacked 8 convoys carrying out the flag of the International Red Cross, to the point that the UNRWA commissioner was assessing the general situation, said that the agency had never been subjected to, was subjected to since its establishment. Where are the emergency forces? Where are the United Nations? Where is France, Britain, America? Where are they? They always tell us they must rely on international resolutions. We must rely on international resolutions, and there is no international resolution that the Israelis can abide by. They do what they want, and they do not respond to anyone. These were some of the main things that Naim Qassem, the Deputy Secretary General of Hezbollah, said. Meaning, again, the resistance is fine. They are continuing. They entered a new phase, and everything is still calculated. They have the capacity, and as we discussed in the first article, that confirmed from Israel that it's failing to intercept the drones from Hezbollah, and the fact that the drones from Hezbollah are causing them a big headache. Everything is confirmed from Israel. The confirmation is coming from Israel, not just from Hezbollah. Which leads us to the next point. Firstly, we're having a bit more back and forth when it comes to France. Macron is saying now, Israeli Prime Minister mustn't forget his country was created by a UN decision. Emmanuel Macron is criticizing Netanyahu again, and Netanyahu is not sitting down quietly. He is continuing to respond. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu should not forget his country was created as a result of a resolution adopted by the United Nations. French President Emmanuel Macron told cabinet on Tuesday, urging Israel to abide by UN decisions. Tensions have increased between Netanyahu and Macron, with the French leader last week insisting that stopping the export of weapons used by Israel in Gaza and Lebanon was the only way to stop the conflicts. Like we say in Arabic, Sabah al khair, good morning. Did you just wake up now? France has also repeatedly denounced Israeli fire against UN peacekeepers in southern Lebanon, who include a French contingent. Mr. Netanyahu must not forget his country was created by a decision of the UN, referring to the resolution adopted in November 1947 with General Assembly for the partition of Palestine into a Jewish state and an Arab state. Therefore, this is not the time to disregard the decisions of the UN, he added. Netanyahu on Sunday called on the UN to move 10,000 strong peacekeeping force, who includes 700 French troops deployed in South Lebanon, out of harm's way. Later on Tuesday, Netanyahu hit back at Macron's comments, saying that the country's founding was achieved by the 1948 Arab-Israeli War, not a UN ruling. A reminder to the President of France, it was not the UN resolution that established the State of Israel, but rather the victory achieved in the War of Independence with the blood of heroic fighters, many of whom were Holocaust survivors, including from the Vichy regime in France, Netanyahu said in a statement. So, digging at France, almost saying they were Nazis, as if, the Zionists did not collaborate with the Nazis with their Havara agreement and, this whole joke of, Zionism versus Nazism. They worked hand in hand. The Nazis were talking about a final solution to the Jewish question, and Zionism came and handed them the final solution to the Jewish question on a golden plate and with a silver spoon as well. And it's not just France now, it's also the United States of America. The United States administration are now saying, oh no, hold on a second, Israel, what are you doing? The United States administration is giving Israel an ultimatum now. What is this ultimatum? Well, they're saying, they're warning, apparently, and we'll talk about this warning and what their warnings mean. US warns Israel to boost humanitarian aid into Gaza or risk losing weapons funding. Blinken is worried. Ladies and gentlemen. He wants the aid to go into Gaza. The Biden administration has warned Israel that it must increase the amount of humanitarian aid it is allowing into Gaza within the next 30 days, or it could risk losing access to US weapons funding. Ooh, dangerous stuff. Secretary of State Antony Blinken and Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin warned their Israeli counterparts in a letter dated Sunday that the changes must occur. The letter, which restates US policy towards humanitarian aid and arms transfer, was sent amid deteriorating conditions in northern Gaza and an Israeli airstrike on a hospital tent site in central Gaza that killed at least 4 people and burnt others. A similar letter that Blinken sent to Israeli officials in April led more humanitarian assistance getting into Palestinian territory, State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller said Tuesday. But that has not lasted. In fact, it's fallen by over 50% from where it was at its peak, Miller said in a briefing. Blinken and Austin thought it was appropriate to make clear to the government of Israel that there are changes that they need to make again to see the level of assistance making it into Gaza comes back up from the very, very low levels that it's at today. For Israel to continue qualifying for foreign military financing, the level of aid getting into Gaza must increase to at least 350 trucks a day. Israel must institute additional humanitarian pauses and provide increased security for humanitarian sites, Austin and Blinken said in their letter. They said Israel had 30 days to respond to the requirements. The letter was not meant as a threat, of course not. How can you threaten the chosen ones? White House National Security spokesperson John Kirby told reporters the letter was simply meant to reiterate, the sense of urgency we feel and the seriousness which we feel about the need to increase, a dramatic increase of humanitarian assistance. An Israeli official confirmed a letter had been delivered but did not discuss the contents. That official, speaking on condition of anonymity to discuss a diplomatic matter, confirmed that the U.S. had raised humanitarian concerns and was putting pressure on Israel to speed up the flow of aid into Gaza. The letter, which an Axios reporter posted a copy of online, was sent during a period of growing frustration at the administration that, despite repeated and increasingly vocal requests to scale back offensive operations against Hamas, Israel's bombardment has led to unnecessary civilian deaths and risk plunging the region into a much wider war. 50,000 unnecessary deaths. 50,000, 100,000 wounded. The rest lost their limbs, no medical aid, dying because of lack of treatment, dying of hunger, dying of starvation. That's like unnecessary. Notice the terminology. It's very important. And again, the Biden administration is increasing the calls. They're continuing and saying that it's a requirement for the United States to continue the support for Israel just before the US presidential election in 3 weeks. Well, what did that really say? Well, firstly, you can tell everything by this here. It must increase the amount of humanitarian aid it is allowing into Gaza within the next 30 days, or it could risk losing access to US weapons funding. So increase, meaning what exactly? Give the Gazans an additional tomato each a month? That's an increase. Secondly, or risk. What's this ultimatum? And this, I wanted to quote this primarily because it was circulating like on social media, embargo, and the United States is threatening. It's all a show. It's all a joke. It's all a joke. There's no substantial anything behind it, because they have supported this genocide from the beginning to this day. They gave Israel the legitimacy to begin conducting a genocide. They refused ceasefire calls from Brazil, Russia, and China. They legitimized the attack on civilians, calling them human shields. And now this Nazi foreign minister of Germany is saying, well, yeah, Israel, no, we're going to have to continue sending them weapons because they need to be able to destroy these people. Well, nothing's changed. They're still supporting them. Now, they're still talking about Iran. They're still talking about Iran now, and, they're reviewing everything. But it doesn't appear that we have something solid so far. There have been talks online and on some mainstream media and newspapers that Israel is waiting for the elections, and anything before the elections would not include the nuclear facilities or the oil sector in Iran, something that Benjamin Netanyahu denied, like he denied that he is no longer attacking Beirut, like he denied accepting a ceasefire when the President Joe Biden himself said he accepted a ceasefire. So we're witnessing a role play here between the United States and Israel. The United States is acting like it's doing something, when really and truly they are enabling, facilitating this genocide, supporting it completely with no boundaries and no limits. And again, we're still having the same warnings coming from Iran that if they would attack us, we will respond, and we will respond harshly.